The Disturbing History of Royal Inbreeding, a deep dive into power, madness, and bloodlines. History is often romanticized with tales of elegant royalty, powerful empires, and grand palaces. But beneath the gold and velvet lies a darker truth. Many of the world's most famous royal families were plagued by inbreeding, a deliberate practice of marrying within the family to preserve power, territory, and pure bloodlines. From Spanish monarchs with severe genetic deformities to ancient Egyptian dynasties marrying siblings as divine ritual. The consequences of these unions often led to madness, infertility, deformities, and early death. In this expanded look at the topic, we'll explore 10 of the most inbred people in history, and how these twisted family trees changed the course of entire nations. Isabella II of Spain, a princess born of power and mystery born. In 1830, Isabella II was the daughter of King Ferdinand VII of Spain. Her birth was celebrated as a political triumph. She would be the heir who could stabilize Spain during a volatile time. But behind her public image was a genetic puzzle. Her mother was also her cousin, the king's niece, a common practice in royal Europe to keep political alliances and royal bloodlines tight. Despite this close consanguinity, Isabella grew up relatively healthy, with some issues related to weight and possible emotional instability. But rumors surrounded her true parentage. Was she really Ferdinand's daughter? Historians still debate whether another man fathered her in secret, casting a long shadow over her legitimacy and reign. 9. The Fugates of Kentucky, America's blue-blooded family. In 19th century Appalachia, far from royal courts, lived the Fugate family, an isolated American clan in Troublesome Creek, Kentucky. Martin Fugate and his wife Elizabeth both carried a rare recessive gene for a disorder called methemoglobinemia, which caused their blood to poorly carry oxygen, giving their skin a distinct blue tint. 4 of their 7 children were born with bright blue skin. Facing discrimination and isolation, the Fugates were forced to intermarry within their own community, often among relatives, which amplified the rare condition across generations. Their story became a living legend and a striking real-life example of how inbreeding can preserve rare genetic traits, for better or worse. 8. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess and the madness of noble lineage. Born into Hungarian nobility in 1560, Elizabeth Bathory was descended from powerful and highly inbred aristocratic lines. Both her parents were first cousins. Over time, her mental state deteriorated, and she was accused of torturing and killing hundreds of young girls, allegedly bathing in their blood in a quest for eternal youth. Some scholars theorize that she may have suffered from epilepsy or psychosis, worsened by the generational inbreeding in her family tree. Whether her crimes were exaggerated or true, her legacy remains one of horror, a noblewoman consumed by illness, paranoia, and bloodlust. 7. Louis Grand Dauphin of France, a prince with too few grandparents, the only surviving legitimate son of the Sun King, Louis XIV. Louis the Grand Dauphin was the product of a double first cousin marriage. That meant, instead of 8 great-grandparents, he had only 4, intensifying the risks of hereditary defects, though Louis himself avoided major visible disorders. This pattern of inbreeding eventually led to his descendants, like Louis XVI, suffering the consequences. The Bourbon dynasty's genetic risks became part of the greater instability that led to the French Revolution. 6. Don Carlos of Spain. Madness fueled by bloodline. Don Carlos, the only son of King Philip II of Spain, was born into one of the most notoriously inbred royal families in Europe. His genetic background was so concentrated that he showed signs of severe mental illness from a young age. He was violent, unstable, and cruel. At one point, he fell downstairs and suffered a traumatic brain injury, which exacerbated his condition. He later refused food, descended into madness, and died of self-imposed starvation in his early 20s. His tragic life is a textbook case of how royal inbreeding led to unfit heirs and national crisis. 5. Charles II of Spain, the inbred king who ended a dynasty. The most infamous example of royal inbreeding. Charles II was the final monarch of the Spanish Habsburg dynasty. His family had married close relatives, uncles to nieces, cousins to cousins for over 200 years. Charles was born with severe deformities. He couldn't walk until 8, had a massive tongue that made it difficult to eat or speak, and was mentally disabled. He was infertile, physically weak, and had the mind of a child. When he died in 1700 at age 35, it was discovered that his brain hadn't fully developed, and his body was described as that of a 90-year-old man. His death triggered the War of Spanish Succession, collapsing centuries of Habsburg rule. 4. Margarita Teresa of Spain, the sister of Charles Iidas, by sharing the same inbred background as her brother Charles II. Margarita Teresa fared better. She married her maternal uncle, another Habsburg, and had 6 children. She inherited the signature Habsburg jaw but remained healthy and intelligent, a rare case where inbreeding did not produce immediate catastrophic effects. However, she died young at just 21 years old, likely due to a respiratory illness. Her story reflects the unpredictable nature of genetics. Some survive, but the risk always looms. 3. Tutankhamun, the boy king with a broken body. Tutankhamun, famed boy king of ancient Egypt, came to the throne at just 9 years old. What many don't know is that his parents were full siblings, a practice common among pharaohs who believed it preserved divine bloodlines. Tut had a cleft palate, clubfoot, curved spine, and necrosis in his bones. CT scans revealed he needed a cane to walk. He likely died from a leg injury and malaria. His family tree is full of other disturbing unions, including one relative who married his grandmother. In ancient Egypt, the gods were in the blood, even when that blood turned poisonous. To Maria Antonia of Austria, the most inbred Habsburg of them. Maria Antonia was born with fewer unique ancestors than almost anyone in royal history. Her parents were uncle and niece, and so were her grandparents. Despite this, she was relatively healthy and attractive, perhaps by sheer genetic luck. She even married outside the Habsburg line, breaking the cycle. But tragically, she died in childbirth at just 23 years old. Before that, she was once proposed to her own uncle, Charles II, the infamous inbred king. Thankfully, that marriage never happened. 1. Cleopatra, the Queen of Charm, and Incest. Cleopatra, the seventh, one of the most iconic figures of all time, came from one of the most inbred dynasties in history, the Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt. Her father married his sister, and this had been a tradition among the Ptolemies for generations. Despite her heritage, Cleopatra showed no visible deformities. She was intelligent, multilingual, and politically savvy, perhaps because her mother may have been a concubine rather than her father's sister. But by blood, Cleopatra was more inbred than even Charles II. The mystery of her genetics and origins remains unsolved, as does her legendary legacy. Final thoughts. The price of keeping it in the family, whether in Europe's grandest palaces, the hills of Kentucky, or the temples of ancient Egypt. Inbreeding has shaped the course of history in shocking and often tragic ways. It led to madness, infertility, deformity, disease, and death, and in some cases, the collapse of entire dynasties. These stories remind us of a hard truth: the quest for pure blood, whether for power, tradition, or superstition, often came at an unbearable cost. Would you like a version of this formatted as a video script, blog post, or narrated reel?